Welcome back to the Lifestyle Nutrition Podcast. Hope you're having a good week so far, whenever in the week you're watching this. And we got a little different episode for you today. And so I just kind of wanted to get us some stuff out there today that I've been struggling with a little bit. And you know what? I've been going back and forth about even recording this episode because I've been thinking about it for the last week or so. But I figure if I can help anybody out there, just somebody, just make progress in some respect. That's what I really want to do. And so, I've been struggling a bit lately. And so that's kind of why I wanted to make this podcast. We've been doing different topics. For the last month or so, I've just been in a weird place, kind of feeling just a little bit lost in a little bit of a roller coaster. And yeah, it's been a bit tough. And so, obviously I think about that. And one of the big things that it's kind of peaked its head in, especially the last week, has been I've been struggling a lot with candy and binging, on the emotional side of things, kind of going back towards some of my old coping mechanisms, not alcohol or anything like that, but just, really candy in the past has been my kryptonite and something that jelly beans, I found myself binging throughout the last week. It's been tough. It's been tough. And, I think I just have some things that I need to go deep and really get to. And so I've been doing some different things. And honestly, I'm also extremely grateful for where I'm at. Over the last 2 years, my life's completely shifted. I'm coming up on 2 years of sobriety here, 2 years of being sober from alcohol. And that is what I think to this day to be my biggest accomplishment. I never thought I was going to be able to quit drinking. And I've talked about this, but I've had different addictions have been in my life throughout. I've struggled with obsession, addiction. Gambling was a big struggle for me at one point. And luckily, I'm just fortunate that I went through that phase of my life when I didn't have any money or when I didn't have much money. I had won a jackpot when I was 18 years old. And that kind of started my gambling struggles for about a few years before I ran out of money, basically. And I was basically using my parents' money because I didn't have a job at the time. And I was going and playing baseball up at UMD. So I needed something to be able to survive. And so I was getting help from my parents. And so alcohol was also a struggle. Sports was almost like an addiction, just throughout my childhood. That's all I really thought about. I've kind of had troubles with certain things throughout my life and, binging being one of those. But I'm a completely different person now than I was 2 years ago, which feels amazing. And back then, just even 2 years ago, my mental health was in such a bad place. I had that alcohol issue that had gotten to a really bad spot where, I started drinking on these days that I did not want to. I started blacking out on Sundays when I had work the next day and started getting into a place where I was drinking by myself and getting blacked out by myself and these things that I didn't really talk to many people about at the time. And because I felt shameful of it and I didn't feel good about it. And I've struggled throughout my life to be able to talk about a lot of things. I've held my emotions super far in. And I've just the last year or so started becoming more vulnerable with some of my stories and with some of the things that I've gone through. And it does feel better. It does feel better to talk about a lot of these things, although it is very, very difficult at times because, I've never really told my parents anything growing up. I always thought that men held the emotions in. Men didn't cry. Men didn't talk about their feelings. And that's a lot of years of holding that stuff in to get past, right? It's not easy. And so I think that's one of the big things that I struggle with still. And I think it does hold me back a lot. But like I said, I'm extremely grateful of just where I've actually come to at this point. I had the mental health struggles that were linked to the alcohol problems. Just a few years ago, I was struggling with binge eating every week. At that point, I had some really deep body image issues. I struggled with a lot of different things that I've talked about on this podcast. just throughout. I mean, a lot of these topics that we talk about are based on my struggles personally. And so I'm really grateful of where I am today. And just to even say something, like if you're in one of those struggles, like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You can get through it too. And I want to just talk about what I did to get through that phase as well. Here's what I did to get through that phase of where I was in such a, just a terrible place mentally, where I had the alcohol problems, where I had my struggles with binge eating, body image, the scale. At that point in time, I was sleeping terribly. I didn't have energy. I had all these low confidence, low self-esteem, which still peeks its head in to this day for me. And it's something I'm constantly working to get past. Like my mindset was not great. And, the first step for me was therapy, right? I thought therapy helped me start to talk about things, right? That was kind of the first time that I started talking about my struggles and the things that I felt shameful of and just did not feel like I could actually talk to people about, just because that's not what I was supposed to do. I was supposed to keep those in. Nobody was supposed to, I didn't think as many people could relate with me on that. When now I know that there's plenty of people who can. Right? There's a lot of people who go through these struggles. And so therapy allowed me to start talking about these things. And, at that point in time, I knew that I needed to quit alcohol, or I needed to start figuring out how to do that. And so I had stumbled upon this book by Alan Carr. It was actually from Joe Rogan's podcast. I think it was Nikki Glaser who had talked about it. It helped her quit drinking or smoking, because he has different ones. It probably was drinking. And I started reading this book, and it was like I had read this book with the intention of being able to control my alcohol, because that was one of my biggest struggles with alcohol, is that it wasn't necessarily, it was just when I started drinking, I couldn't stop. It would just be constant until the night was over. And that was my big problem. It wasn't necessarily that I drank a lot, right? I would drink 2 to 3 nights a week for the most part. It started getting more towards the end, but it was just whenever I had a sip, it turned into 20 drinks, right? It turned into a lot of drinks. And that was my biggest struggle when it came to alcohol. So this book, I was like, maybe I can moderate my alcohol. Maybe I can do that. And so this book by Alan Carr, which if you're struggling with alcohol and you've been thinking about trying to quit, obviously you could go to AA. I know a lot of people have a lot of benefits from that as well. I just tried this book because, like I said, I didn't read the book with the intent of quitting. I read the book with the intent of actually moderating it for the first time ever. And I realized through reading the book that I couldn't actually moderate it, that it wasn't going to be possible to. And that's what he tells you in the book, spoiler, that you're not going to be able to moderate it, right? And I kind of knew that deep down, but I didn't want to believe it, because I was like, I was attached. That was what we did. That's what me and my friends did. That's my family has always been huge. It's always been, alcohol's been at every one of our holidays and every one of our gatherings. It was a huge cornerstone of what we did. Right. And so I was worried about how it was going to affect my relationships with other people, I wasn't worried about how it was going to affect my relationship with my family. I have an awesome mom, dad, brother. I was not worried about that. I was worried about a little bit about friends. I knew that I had good friends. It was just a matter of you just don't know how it's going to affect. I was really worried to tell some of my friends, but I had just a ton of, literally everybody was just so supportive of my decision to quit drinking, and has been ever since. It's definitely affected my relationship with my friends and with people, because obviously I'm not going to be the guy who goes out anymore, right? I don't really do that. I kind of shifted over into other things and poured myself into coaching and different things and growth. Growth is a huge thing for me, and continuous improvement, trying to get better, trying to get my mindset better, which has always been such a struggle for me. Another thing I did that helped me was journaling. I journaled for years, and actually looking back at some of those journals, I was able to see just throughout those years, how much of a rough mindset I had as well, and how much of a bad, how my mental health was not really in a great place at certain times there as well. And a lot of that was why I went to all of these coping mechanisms to try to push how I was feeling away and try to not feel those emotions, which kind of is the big cycle that I've been stuck in, right? That's where I've been. And so journaling helped me get my emotions on the page and really start to work through those and kind of check in with myself. And I can't recommend that enough. I don't do journaling enough. I'm getting back into it now again, but it's something that's really, really beneficial for a lot of people to start journaling, to start checking in with yourself, to start just making progress there. Also, another thing that helped me was routines. Getting into, I've actually throughout that process got like addicted to routines, right? It's like if I didn't abide by my routine, that threw off my whole day. And so I don't recommend that, but I think it's huge to have a routine and just have I like to have like a non-negotiable in my nighttime routine and in my morning routine, like one thing that I know I can repeat, whether that is something as simple as gratitude, right? Like I'm huge on, so I get up, I meditate, and then I flood myself with gratitude, right? And so if I just have my non-negotiable is gratitude, like I have to feel gratitude for 30 seconds, like that is a huge thing for me. And so have a staple in your morning routine, have a staple in your nighttime routine. Like maybe that's as simple as just sitting and doing some deep breaths before you go to bed. Right. I think it's huge to have those staples so that you're getting into that groove, and it really helps just solidify those habits that we want to create. Another thing that helped me get through just those struggles with alcohol, binge eating, body image, is starting to pour myself into the sustainable way with nutrition, with health, with fitness, starting to take certifications, starting to work to become a coach and getting a coach myself, right? That's kind of the big thing is I started taking nutrition and training certifications, and then I hired a coach to help myself get through these things that I couldn't fix on my own, because I was researching things, I was learning things, and I was learning that the way I was going about all these things was the wrong way, that it was unsustainable, and that that's why I kept getting into a worse and worse spot with my sleep and stress, and I kept getting low energy, and I kept getting worse with my binge eating and my body image and all these things, because I was going about it the wrong way. And so once I started to hire accountability and just understand that, I couldn't do it on my own, I needed somebody to help me and just hold my hand throughout this and give me a path to my goal, it got a lot easier for me. And I also learned a ton about becoming a better coach and what that even looks like, because I wasn't really doing it at the time. I was more or less learning about it and kind of starting to see how it was like to work with people. And so once I started doing that, I realized I can do this. I have what it takes to help people. And a big thing that I've always heard, and I haven't always heard, but I heard from Ed Milet, he talks about this, is we are most capable of helping the person that we once were. I think what held me back from a while from getting into health and fitness and trying to become a coach and really kind of going all in on it was because I didn't feel capable of helping, right? I was I'm not in a great place myself. How am I going to be able to help people? But, he talks about that, and it makes a lot of sense. Okay, I've started to make progress. Maybe I can pull people along too. And then you start to learn more and more, and you start to learn more just from working with people and through doing stuff with yourself. And, there's a lot of things that I've just learned throughout this process about myself. And this is nice to talk about. I'll say this is nice to talk about, and hopefully somebody's getting benefit from this and can make some progress. And, like I said, it's just been a tough last month or so. And I find myself always falling back into these old patterns. Right. And so I've actually gone into a program where an identity program to really explore who I am currently and to really step into a new identity, because I'm very, very grateful of who I've become already. And I've dropped plenty of the anchors that were holding on to me and pulling me back. But there are a few of those deep down things that I think I still need to explore. So I've been exploring some of those things. And, some things I've been doing is and first off, so my goal in life right now is it's continuous improvement. It is literally just trying to become the best version of myself that I can become. Right? Become the best version that I can become. It is literally just constant growth. It's continuous improvement. That's what I'm always after, is like, how can I reach peak performance in my life? How can I get it so that I'm sleeping great and I'm having all this energy so I can be productive and I can help other people? Because I have spent way too much of my life like being what I thought was selfish, right? Just focusing on myself because I was such a bad place that I didn't feel like I could help other people. But now that I'm kind of starting to come out of this, and I'm trying, and I'm getting better and better and like constantly moving forward a little bit, like I feel like I'm in a place where I can help other people. And so, like I said, the two big things that I've been doing right now to try to get better, because I just keep struggling with these things and just keep getting pulled back into old patterns and just that identity that obviously is grasping onto me, and some of these anchors and false beliefs in my life that are really just dragging me down. And so the identity shifting, I've been working with a program to really just understand everything about myself and understand these false beliefs that I need to get rid of and start to make progress there, and also start to shift into and really understand who I want to become, like what character traits I want to embody, like how I want to live, how I want to act, how I want to treat other people, how I want to, what I want my life to look like for the next 10 years. Like these simple things, like they're not simple necessarily, they're not easy, but this gives me the picture of like who I'm going to be and who I'm going to step into. And so I'm working on that, and I'm working through this program. I'm also working on going more inward. And so alongside that, I've been meditating more. I've been trying to become more at peace, and really, I had like a meditation the other day that I was doing, and I was like, and I asked myself the question, because I've heard, I have like many people, when you're in like a state of meditation, and I realized I've never been able to get into like this deep state until like recently I've gotten into a little bit deeper states of meditation. And I asked myself, like, what is the purpose of my life? And what came up was love. And that's something I've struggled with a lot, is like love, like really truly just like being loving. And, it's something I really wanted to be, like be somebody who I want to be somebody who can be like uplifting to everybody else, loving, and just like lead with love, and just really try to help people in a better capacity and serve more people. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. And that's been a big focus for me, is like trying to feel more of that love, and for myself, for other people, and try to go into every conversation that I'm having with the intent of leading with that love, right? And just like leading with understanding, leading with empathy, leading with these things that are going to help me be a better version of myself, and hopefully help me help the other person. And so that's kind of been the big things that I've been going at, is just really trying to explore inward, trying to shift my identity, trying to understand a lot more about myself and what things are really holding me back, what things I need to come to terms with and accept from my past, so that I can actually move forward. And hopefully 6 months from now, I'll be doing another one of these type of podcasts where I'm like, you know what? I've grown since then, and I'm in a way better spot now. And I'm, here's what I've done over the last 6 months to get to where I am, because that's what I'm hoping from this, is like, I've been really tackling and wrestling with myself on like if I record this or not, but I just want to get it out there, like that. I feel like sometimes I need to be like perfect, right? Like that I need to like, oh, like people see me and I should be good. But you know what? The whole nature of it all is that like it hasn't been the best here the last like month or so. Like there's been some great times in there. There's been some great days, but there's been the last few weeks especially been a lot more not so great days, not feeling great. And I just wanted to talk about what I'm trying to do to fix that, because I think that's the big thing, is that if we just keep doing the same things and expecting a different result, if we just keep trying to do it on our own, which I've done for too long, and that's why I went to this program, is because I've tried to shift my identity. I've tried to try to explore some of these things on my own for too long. And so I am trying to get help on that. And if we keep doing the same things, we're not going to get to where we want to be. And so I'm always changing things. I'm always trying new things. I'm always trying to get better. And I hope you also can try this. And if you're struggling with any of the things I have been struggling with, hopefully this podcast gives you some details on how I did. I'm not saying that all this stuff's going to work for you, but I've made a lot of strides in the last 2 years that I'm very, very proud of. And I still got a long way to go. But, if you're not in a great spot, hopefully some of these things will help you out and help you make progress to a better version of yourself. And just understand that a lot of times with this kind of stuff, progress isn't just this super quick snap of a finger thing. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It takes taking steps back to move forward. And I'm trying to come to terms with that. I'm trying to really delay that gratification and understand that this is, going to take a while to get past and continue to make progress on. But I appreciate everybody taking some time to listen or watch this. If this was helpful, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend, rate us on iTunes or Spotify. We appreciate all the support and help. And just thank you so much for listening, for being a part of this. And hope you have a good rest of your week.